Micro-expressions. An emotional leakage in a fraction of a second. The human face is not designed to lie perfectly. Even when someone tries to control their words, their facial muscles often reveal what the mind is trying to hide. These brief, involuntary facial movements are called micro-expressions. They last between 1/25th and 1/5 of a second, too fast for conscious control, but long enough for the brain to detect. Micro-expressions occur because emotional processing happens in deep brain structures, such as the amygdala, which react faster than the conscious mind. When a person feels fear, guilt, contempt, or anxiety, the emotional signal is sent before the rational brain has time to suppress it. For example, a person lying about something serious may briefly show fear, raised eyebrows, widened eyes; contempt, one corner of the mouth lifting; disgust, a slight nose wrinkle; sadness, a micro droop of the lips. The key point is this: micro-expressions are not proof of lying. They are proof of emotional conflict. The emotion may come from fear of being caught, fear of consequences, or internal discomfort. In controlled laboratory studies, people trained to recognize micro-expressions perform significantly better at detecting deception than chance. However, untrained observers often miss them entirely or misinterpret them. This is why micro-expressions are most reliable when compared to a baseline. You are not looking for a single flash of emotion, but for a mismatch between what someone says and what briefly appears on their face. Lying is not just verbal, it is emotional, and emotions leak.
The myth of avoiding eye contact. Why liars often stare too much.
One of the most persistent myths about lying is the idea that liars avoid eye contact. In reality, experienced liars often do the opposite. Eye contact is socially associated with honesty. Because of this, people who lie consciously monitor their gaze. They may force themselves to maintain eye contact longer than normal, creating an unnatural stare. From a neurological perspective, eye contact increases cognitive load. It activates social monitoring systems in the brain, forcing the liar to juggle their story, the listener's reactions, their own facial control, their body language. When someone tells the truth, eye contact fluctuates naturally. The gaze moves away while recalling information, then returns. When lying, the gaze may become rigid, over-controlled, or unnaturally fixed. Studies in behavioral psychology show that liars tend to blink less during the lie, stare more intensely while speaking, resume blinking rapidly after the lie is delivered. The critical moment is not during the sentence, but immediately after. Once the lie is completed, the nervous system releases tension, causing a rebound effect. So the question is not, are they avoiding eye contact? The real question is their eye behavior natural for them? Excessive control is often more revealing than avoidance.
Cognitive load. Why liars often move less, not more.
Contrary to popular belief, lying does not always make people fidget. In fact, many liars become unnaturally still. This phenomenon is known as cognitive load. Lying requires mental resources. The brain must invent information, keep it consistent, suppress the truth, monitor reactions, and remember what has already been said. All of this happens in the prefrontal cortex, the same region responsible for motor control and inhibition. When cognitive load increases, the brain prioritizes thinking over movement. As a result, gestures become reduced, body movement freezes, posture stiffens, hands may remain unnaturally still. Truthful speakers use spontaneous gestures to help memory retrieval and communication. Their hands move naturally as thoughts flow. Liars, on the other hand, often limit movement to avoid giving something away. This does not mean that stillness equals lying, but a sudden reduction in movement compared to a person's normal behavior can signal increased mental effort. The key is change. If someone is normally expressive and suddenly becomes rigid during a specific topic, the brain is working harder than usual. Stillness can be louder than movement. Sudden changes in vocal pace. The voice gives up the brain. The human voice is deeply connected to the nervous system. Stress, fear, and cognitive strain directly affect breathing patterns, muscle tension, and vocal control. When someone lies, these systems often fall out of sync. One of the most reliable vocal indicators of deception is a sudden change in speech rate. A liar may speak faster to rush through the lie, slow down unnaturally to carefully choose words, insert long pauses mid-sentence, change rhythm compared to their baseline. This happens because lying disrupts automatic speech. Truthful speech is largely procedural. Lies require conscious construction. Neurolinguistic studies show that deceptive speech often includes fewer contractions, more formal phrasing, slight increases in pitch, inconsistent pacing. Again, the issue is not speed itself, but deviation. If a person normally speaks fluidly and suddenly becomes hesitant, fragmented, or overly controlled during a specific answer, their brain is under strain. The voice is difficult to fake because it reflects internal state, not just intention. You can control words. You cannot fully control physiology. Feet pointing toward the exit. The body wants to escape before the mind admits it. The feet are one of the most honest parts of the body. Unlike the face or the hands, feet are rarely consciously controlled. The brain prioritizes facial control because it knows others are watching the face. Feet operate below awareness, guided by the nervous system rather than social intention. When a person feels uncomfortable, threatened, or trapped, the body subtly prepares for escape. This preparation often appears in foot orientation. During deception, it is common to observe feet pointing toward an exit, feet slowly shifting away from the listener, one foot angled outward while the torso remains facing forward. This mismatch is important. The upper body stays engaged to maintain the social performance. The lower body reveals the true emotional direction. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. When danger appeared, humans oriented their bodies toward escape routes long before conscious decision-making occurred. That instinct still exists. Studies in behavioral observation show that when a person discusses a topic that creates internal conflict, their feet often reposition first. The movement is subtle but consistent. Again, this does not prove lying. It indicates avoidance motivation. The person wants to leave the interaction, the topic, or the psychological pressure. The body often votes to leave before the mind agrees. Psychological distancing. How language reveals emotional separation. One of the most powerful indicators of deception does not involve the body at all. It involves language. When people lie, they often distance themselves psychologically from the lie. This distancing reduces guilt, emotional discomfort, and cognitive strain. It happens automatically and unconsciously. This is known as linguistic distancing. It commonly appears as reduced use of I or me, increased use of we, you, or passive constructions, describing actions without ownership. For example, mistakes were made instead of I made a mistake. People do that sometimes instead of I did that. You know how it is instead of personal explanation. Neuroscientifically, this distancing reduces emotional activation in the brain. By removing the self from the sentence, the liar lowers internal stress. Research using text analysis and speech analysis shows that deceptive statements contain fewer first-person pronouns and more abstract phrasing. Truth is personal. Lies are often impersonal. This is one of the reasons written confessions, emails, and messages can reveal deception patterns even without seeing the person. Language carries emotional fingerprints. Hand over the mouth. The suppression reflex. Covering the mouth is one of the earliest learned behaviors in human development. Children instinctively cover their mouths when they lie, laugh inappropriately, or say something forbidden. As adults, this reflex does not disappear. It becomes subtler. During deception, the hand may briefly touch the lips, cover part of the mouth, brush the chin or nose, move near the face without purpose. This behavior reflects an unconscious desire to block or suppress speech. The brain is experiencing conflict. One system is producing speech, another system is signaling restraint. The hand acts as a mediator between the two. This reflex is tied to inhibitory control networks in the brain. When discomfort spikes, motor impulses seek expression. The hand-to-mouth gesture is a compromise between stopping speech and continuing it. Importantly, this gesture often appears after a deceptive statement, not during. The lie is delivered, then the body reacts. It is not a signal of dishonesty alone. It is a signal of self-monitoring under stress. The mouth is the source of the lie. The hand tries to intervene. Excessive blinking after the lie. Blinking is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Under normal conditions, blinking follows a relatively stable rhythm. Stress disrupts this rhythm. When people lie, blinking behavior often follows a specific pattern. Reduced blinking during the lie, a rapid burst of blinking immediately after. This happens because lying requires concentration. The brain suppresses non-essential functions, including blinking, to maintain focus. Once the lie is completed, the nervous system releases tension. The rebound occurs. This post-lie blinking surge is one of the most consistently observed physiological indicators of deception in laboratory studies. Importantly, it happens after the statement, not during. Observers often miss it because they stop paying attention once the answer is given. Blinking is not about eyes. It is about nervous system load. When the system resets, the body reveals the cost. None of these signs prove that someone is lying. This is critical. Human behavior is complex. Stress, anxiety, fear, embarrassment, trauma, or social pressure can produce the same signals as deception. What these signs reveal is cognitive and emotional strain. Lying increases mental effort. It creates internal conflict. It disrupts natural behavior. The mistake people make is looking for single signals instead of patterns. Deception is not detected by one gesture, one look, or one movement. It emerges through clusters of changes, deviations from baseline behavior, inconsistencies across systems, face, body, voice, language. The most reliable observers do not jump to conclusions. They observe, compare, and wait, because the truth does not need control, but lies do. Explaining things simply.